so now I'm doing the sleeve, taking care to be doing the sleeve from the same side of the garment where I copied the body. I've drawn a line again, which I'll be lining up the sleeve to, is that we check and we make sure that we folded on our seam line and press nice and flat. And then we line the fold up to the line we've drawn on the paper. Now, it won't line up all the way down, even though we know that this is a singular piece. It will come away slightly at the head because it has been stitched into the armhole. It will force that to bend. And then from the placket area downwards, we've got pleats. We have a pleat here. And this is causing this area to bend in, even though we know that we have a sleeve that's a single piece and it must continue along this line. The gap that we see here is usually the same depth as the pleat actually on the garment. I'm going to pin into the area that lines up with my centre line. Making sure that my sleeve is laying nice and flat. Okay. So I'm going to draw in the underarm seam, just using my finger to allow the sleeve to curve the way that it would independently, not the way that the armhole is forcing it to lay. I'm then going to go through with this tracing wheel. And just so that I have a record of it, I am marking the very small amount that didn't reach the line, just in case when I'm matching things up later, that if there are any discrepancies, I know that I would have this amount to play with if I needed to take something away from another area of the pattern. Okay, we can see that this point here, that where the sleeve meets the cuff, is where the sleeve pattern would finish. And the same in this direction. We now, because our stripes allow us to see this more easily, but if this was a plain shirt, the way to find out the correct position for where the placket would sit on the back part of the sleeve is that we would fasten the buttons. This illustrates more clearly on a striped shirt. You can see that the stripes have now straightened up. We've got a little bit of a wave here, but this is probably likely to be just wear and tear. This is quite an old shirt. When the cuff is fastened, we check where the undersleeve seam is. We can see that this is where the underarm finishes, so we can draw that line in. I'm going to pin around the placket just to stabilise the fabric. Then I'm going to mark out where the placket was positioned. I can now release this. We can see that this is a straight line. Connecting each position from where the sleeve met the cuff. We can also see that we have two smallish pleats at the cuff, and this area here would be what is creating that fullness can now go into those pleats. When we come back up to the armhole to be able to draw in the front armhole, I'll be working from the underarm upwards to the sleeve head. I'm going to undo the underarm, leaving the pins in that are connecting the sleeve to the centre line, and I'm just going to undo one pin at a time and roll the sleeve backwards, marking where the front armhole joins the front body. You can see, because I only release one pin at a time, I'm able to stay very stable, my garment's not moving around. I'm just trying to work in a way that you can see. Okay, I can now take the pin securing the centre line away. Now then, I have drawn in the front line and I'm going to go over it with a highlighter. Yeah, I'm also going to make a little mark on my pattern and put F for front next to it so that I don't lose track which is the front of my sleeve and which is the back of my sleeve. I'm then going to mark in following the lines made when we traced through the back armhole, and I'm going to go through that line with another colour. Where the two parts of the back and front sleeve are actually following the same line, I'm just going to go slightly dotted so that we can see that they were both sitting on the same line, and then I'm going continuously over the line. Oops. I will do a mark. I think I'm just going to write it. Yeah. So that when I come back to look at my draft is that there's never any mistake of which was the front armhole and which was the back. I'm now going to create the full sleeve and just checking to see how much paper I need. I'm going to fold my paper over onto the line. Now I'm going to choose to copy the front armhole because the reason being is that the placket is marked on this side, which is the back. So when I'm tracing through, I will choose to follow the front line. I'm just going to allow my paper to come underneath because it will show the lines through more clearly, having another sheet of white paper underneath. Okay, so we know that this is the front. And this is the back. I'm going to draw my placket in. Now, I'm just going to do a pencil line to show you that this is a little bit wobbly. And this happens at times when we're copying garments, is that the line isn't completely straight, so we have to make an assessment and tidy it up. Is that I'm going to I've just made the decision to line up to the top. I'm going to decide how wide I think it was. The top looks as though it was 2.6. The bottom is also 2.6. So there isn't a discrepancy in that way. I'm lining up the points, and then I need the center position to make sure that my point, the apex, is accurate. And it is actually coming to the same position as it did from the tracing, so that we now have our back placket position. Now, if you wanted our pleats in exactly the same position as the original, we would be looking to see how far away the first pleat ended from the edge of the placket, and that's 4 centimetres. I'm going to measure where the end of the second pleat is, coming to the underarm seam, and that's 12. So we'll know that our 2 pleats are taken from this area. When we've actually copied the cuff to see what our final measurement needs to be, is that then we'll be able to see exactly how much needs to go into each pleat.